Perfect. Welcome back. Welcome back to the Mic Check Show. Today on the show, we're joined by one of the most clutch. Am I right?
Pretty much.
Postseason performers in Yankees history. You see the Yankees here. Come on now. We got to represent. We have to. From unforgettable October home runs to championship moments on baseball's biggest stage. He built the reputation as a player who delivered when the pressure was the highest. Ooh, I'm hitting it right on the spot, right, Jim?
Yes, you are.
We're diving into his journey, his playoffs, heroics, and the stories behind those legendary swings. Please welcome, y'all. Please welcome Jim Leyritz.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mike. Everything's going good.
Oh, absolutely. Well, besides the snow.
Yeah.
The way I like to start off, right, is asking rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Go for it.
Biggest clutch hit of your career?
It's whenever I answer that question, it's not such a quick hit because the 95 walk-off against Seattle Mariners in 15 innings in Yankee Stadium was my greatest moment. But the organization's greatest moment was the 96 home run that started that dynasty of the late 1990s in our last Yankee dynasty. That was probably the most important one as far as organizational goes.
Okay. Favorite stadium to hit in besides Yankee Stadium?
Baltimore and Toronto.
Why so?
Baltimore, it was a short porches. And back then it was a brand new stadium, so it was really cool to play in. But they had a big green brick wall out in center field that the ball coming out of the pitcher's hand was so easy to pick up because of that wall. And it was the same thing in Toronto. Toronto had a big black tarp that was out there, and you could pick the ball up so easy out of a pitcher's hand because of the background.
Okay. Toughest pitcher you ever faced?
Randy Johnson, by far. Not even a question.
Best trash talker you played with?
That I played with?
Yes, sir. Now that's a broad question, right? Because played for many seasons.
You wouldn't know it, but Mariano Duncan. He was one of the best trash talkers out there. Back in the day when I first got called up, Mel Hall was there, Caudell Washington.
Oh,
we had a few of them back in the early 90s.
Okay. Pre-game superstition you had to do at the time. And the reason why I say at the time is because I noticed what you're wearing.
Yes.
And I gave my life to the Lord 3 years ago, Jim. So
congratulations.
I commend you for wearing that. Means a lot. John 14:6, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me.
Yep.
So it's wow.
2008, 2008, I read a book called The Purpose-Driven Life by a pastor named Rick Warren. That changed my life forever. 2009, I met my now wife. And it was all because I mentioned I read the book called The Purpose-Driven Life, and she just happened to go to that church in California. We ended up getting together, and when I went through all my stuff that we'll talk about later, the judge in Florida said, "Where do you want to go?" And I said, "I want to start a new life in California, and I'm going to be an usher at this church called Saddleback, where Rick Warren is the pastor of that church. And I'm going to go start a new life starting in 2011. And that is what changed my life forever.
Amen. Wow. Let's move on, right? I don't like that word. Best manager you played for?
You know what? They're all different. The smartest manager I ever played for was Buck Showalter.
Oh, yeah.
Probably the best manager of people would be Joe Torre, and probably the best overall manager as far as me getting along with, me enjoy playing for, but also a great manager, a great communicator. There was nobody besides Bruce Bochy that was any better.
Nice. Wow. I was expecting that actually.
Yeah.
But when people say clutch, your name always comes up, right? Do you feel different in big moments, or is that something fans project onto you?
I think it was, it was the way that I kind of grew up. I grew up with a guy named Pete Rose.
Oh yeah.
And
Rest in
Pete was
peace.
my
Yeah.
idol growing up. And I was lucky enough to stay at the team hotel in spring training with Tommy Brenneman, who Tommy was one of my best friends growing up. Of course, his dad was Marty Brenneman, the Hall of Fame announcer from the Reds. And we stayed at the team hotel, and I met Pete one year, and I asked him specifically as a 13-year-old kid, how are you so good in big moments in the clutch? And he said, Jimmy, you know what it is? We're in spring training right now. You see that I stay after every day and I hit 150 baseballs, 50 to center, 50 to right, 50 to left. But every single one of those swings has a purpose. I'm working
Wow.
on game situations. I'm working on moments that might come up. And you know what? By the time I get to the season, by the time I get to the postseason and the World Series and everything else that we play in, I have already practiced these scenarios 10,000 times
Yeah.
in my practice. So it never, the moment never overwhelms me.
Okay.
And I took that to heart. As a basketball player, I shot baskets, you know, all the way through high school. I was going to go to college, but I practiced every scenario you could think of. I used to do all the trick shots, everything else, because you never know when one of those might come up in a game.
That's
You know,
right.
that type of situation. So I thank him. I thank my father for kind of raising me that way that don't get caught up in a big moment. It's, the Pete Rose's thing was that pitcher's 60 feet, 6 inches today in spring training. World Series, guess what? He's 6 feet, he's 60 feet, 6 inches. I could care less what's going on around me. It's still me against him. And as long as I have that mindset, I won't get caught up in what's going on around me. And really, I took that to heart as a young kid. And I think that's what really helped me in those big moments.
Amen, Jim Rouse. Speaking mindset, right? Can you take us inside your mindset during that famous 96 World Series home
Yeah,
run?
yeah, people think about it all the time, but it's what I wasn't thinking. Uh,
Really?
that really gave me, I think, the calmness that I had because I had never faced Mark Wohlers before. I had never seen him, and I was not Joe Girardi. Joe Girardi and I were the two catchers in the 96 team.
Yeah.
You knew Joe was going to be a manager because he studied, charts and books and things. I mean, this guy did everything. I didn't even worry about that stuff. All I wanted to know is what pitches does the guy have? What does he throw? And then I'll do the rest. Right. And so we were completely different as far as that goes. And when I was literally on in the dugout, getting ready to come up to face Mark Wohlers, and I looked at Don Zimmer and I said, Zim, what's this guy got? And Zimmer looked at me and said, Jimmy, he throws 100 miles an hour. Get it ready.
Ooh.
And I looked at Darryl Strawberry, who was standing next to me, and I said, Straw, I've got 2 bats left for tomorrow's game against John Smoltz in game 5. I don't want to break a bat against this guy throwing 100 miles an hour. You got a brand new box of Mizunos right there. Can I borrow one of your bats? And Straw said, yeah, go ahead and take one. And I took one, and I went up with Darryl Strawberry's bat. And, again, not knowing what Mark Wohlers had. And all I remember was watching him face. I mean, the first pitch to Charlie Hayes was a swinging bunt, so he didn't know what
Yeah.
he had.
Mm-hmm.
Second one was, I think, 2 or 3 pitches into Darryl Strawberry's at bat. And, and Darryl's a left-handed hitter, so I'm not thinking, okay, he's going to throw the same thing. But when Mariano Duncan went up against him, he had a fastball and a slider that I saw that Mariano saw. So I went up there just looking fastball or slider, one or the other.
Right.
I didn't know about a split finger pitch that he had. Thank God. All right. So when I got into the situation, the first pitch, 96 or 98 mile an hour fastball. I fouled it straight back. I looked like I was right on it. He threw me 2 sliders for balls. Then he threw a 99 mile an hour fastball that I fouled back again. And Tim McCarver on the telecast said, no, Wohlers just hit 99. with the crowd behind him on this pitch. Let's see if he breaks that 100 mark. And then all of a sudden he threw a slider and I barely fouled it off. And I took a step out of the box. I said, okay, he's coming back with a fastball.
Oh, yeah.
And I took about a half a step off the plate. And because I knew I couldn't hit his fastball in because he's throwing 9,900 miles an hour. And sure enough, I guess he said that he saw the outside of the plate open up a little bit more. And so he decided to go back with slider. And because the scouting reports had told him that I was a dead red fastball hitter no matter what you threw, all right? And so he decided to go with slider again. And of course, he hung it. And I was able to hit it for the home run. And the dynasty had begun.
Gone. Long gone.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Man. Jim, I'm so excited because here's the thing, right? I was going to ask you the following question, but I do want to say this. It's in my heart. I have to thank you, right? Because you saved my life, right? And you know, I gangbanged for so many years. And if it wasn't for baseball or basketball and basketball, I would not be here. Right. Due to the fact that I had to go watch the game at a certain time and be home at a certain time, you know, save my life. And me being a fan, right, of not only the Yankees, but yourself. I mean, just 90s baseball is so much different. I mean, I just wanted to say that, Jim, you know, thank you. I appreciate you a whole lot, especially now knowing that you are a brother in Christ, which makes it even more, right, heavenly, let's just say. Right. So, yeah, I want to say thank you, Jim. Yeah, you know, thank you so much.
It's great to hear those stories, you know, because one of the things that you don't, a lot of players don't understand is just the impact that you can have on anybody, whether it's an adult, whether it's a child, whether it's, you know, somebody like yourself, like you said, going through certain things. That's one of the reasons why when George Steinbrenner was with us, George's biggest thing to former players was, okay, you had a great career. You did a lot on the field for the Yankees, but what are you going to do with this platform that God has given you to go out there and help others and change people's lives for what you accomplished? And if you don't go out there and do that, you know, you've pretty much failed. And George is a big reason, besides my mother and father, of course, is a big reason why I do what I do. The reason why I feel like there's an obligation, you know, on top of just being a ball player, that the home runs, the World Series championships, all those are great. All those are memories and things that people can never take away. But it's really, really what I've been able to do since I've been out of the game, since I've been through everything that I've been through, to really, really show other people this is how you continue to have faith, perseverance, and continue to get through things, because as long as God gives you a breath, you have the ability to change your situation.
That's right. Amen. Wow. I like that, Jim. Wow. That was well said. Oh my God. Man. Man. I'm just excited, Jim. You know, from having all these athletes on my show, you are and I hate to say it like this, but the most you have a special place in my heart. You know, and I just wanted to say that.
Well, you know what, Mike, I was brought up going to church on Sundays, going to Bible study on Wednesday nights and things like that. But when life catches up to you sometimes, especially when you get called to the big leagues and you know you're in that atmosphere, you kind of lose a little bit. You kind of lose, like, okay, God is the reason I got here. And to be totally honest with you, what happened in the 90s compared to the way sports are now. When you were religious back in the 90s and the 80s and things like that, it was considered a weakness in sports, that you were a God-fearing person, that you believed God. It was kind of looked on and frowned upon. Matter of fact, we had the kids that were the John Wetlands and the guys that were part of what we called the God Squad. There was a name for them. It wasn't something that was embraced like it is embraced in today's game. And I only think the game is better because of it. I only think the players are better because of it. I think they're a lot more aware of, I can wear Jesus on my heart, on my sleeve, and not be afraid that it's going to be weakness. It could looked at as a weakness. But we didn't have that in the early 90s.
I know.
In the late 80s.
You had to be a tough cookie.
Yeah. And it was one of those things that, you know what, I lost it for a little bit. And then, of course, when I went through my accident and went through some of the things that I went through, but what a lot of people don't understand is, that accident that night, I should have never been drinking and driving, but for the grace of God, it could have been me that got killed by another drunk driver.
Yeah.
And I'm fortunate to be here, to be able to share and to talk about that situation, about the dangers of the drinking and driving and everything else. But part of it also is because of what I was able to do as an athlete, to have this platform that people will change their lives when they hear the story of, hey, listen, guys, I had everything at one point. You know what? One bad decision, drinking and driving, changed all that. And I was just very, very lucky that my life wasn't taken that night by, like I said, another drunk driver. And reading the book, The Purpose-Driven Life, about a month after my accident, really put in perspective of what I was going through. And the pastor at my church in Fort Lauderdale specifically said to me, Jimmy, you will not understand what you're going through while you're in that storm. But when you come out of this, you will know God left you here for a purpose. He could have taken you. He didn't. And you were left here for a purpose. And little did I know that purpose-driven life, that purpose would be to leave a bigger mark than any home run or any championship that I ever won. That because I would be leaving it for all eternity with the man upstairs.
Amen, Jim. Man, I'm super excited. You so you played with some legendary Yankees teams. We all know. What made those championship clubhouses special compared to other teams you were on?
Well, I mentioned earlier George Steinbrenner.
Okay.
George was our owner.
Yeah.
George had this mentality that, what do you need to be successful? He would say to Joe Torre or Buck Showalter or whoever the manager was, what do you need? And he said, I'll go get it, but if you don't win, it's on your head.
Wow.
And that was the one thing that George always made sure that you were always accountable. That he'd give you he'd pay you the most money. He would give you the greatest travel, the greatest hotels, the greatest places, but he expected in return for you to win. And if that winning wasn't the most important thing, he'd get rid of you pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And, I got along great with him. He loved my mentality. He loved the fact that I was a no-nonsense guy. But I was also a guy that, when I got first called up, George was on suspension. And I was telling everybody that I needed to play every day, and I would put up the numbers to be an everyday player. And I wasn't getting that opportunity. And yet I still kept barking. And George loved that. He kept telling my agent, I can't say nothing to him right now because I'm suspended, but tell him to keep that attitude. Keep that attitude. And I think that was, but I also think too that the mentality that was raised by the Yankee organization through the minor leagues all the way up to the big leagues. And Buck Showalter was a big part of that. But, Buck was my manager for 5 years in the minor leagues. He instilled in us about what it meant to put the pinstripes on.
Yeah.
And there was a certain responsibility
Oh,
to
yeah.
wearing the pinstripes. And George just instilled that even further, that, hey, guys, you won't have your name on the back of your jersey, but you want to make a name for yourself, people will remember your number. All right. And that's,
Wow.
you know,
Okay.
and you play for the team on the front, not the team on the back, you know, and
Wow.
that was one of the things that I remember. I can't, there was a guy that was traded, and I don't want to tell it because I don't want to embarrass him, but he was traded to the Yankees. He came into the locker room. He looked at his jersey, and he was, where's my name? Why isn't my name on the back of the jersey? And George just happened to be in the locker room,
Oh, no.
and he heard the kid say this, and he walked over and he goes, and he took the kid's jersey and he turned it around to the front and he showed the kid the NY and he goes, because you'll never be more important than that.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. That was George Steinbrenner. That
Mic drop.
exactly. Exactly. And that was one of the things, one of the reasons why we had 25 guys on a roster. We felt all 25 guys were important. In those 90s teams, yeah, we had the Derek Jeters who started in 96, but then became Derek Jeter by 2000.
Yeah.
But we never had a guy that was leading the league in average, leading the league in home runs or RBIs. We just had 25 guys that played together. And it was such a, and when Joe Torre came in, Joe was probably, like I said, the greatest manager of people. And he said to us, I'm not here to fix a lot. I'm here just to make sure it doesn't get broken.
Wow.
For what Buck Showalter and Gene Michael had started. Because Joe knew that team was on the verge of doing something special. And the fact that he was given that team, he was like, listen, guys, I'm here. I'm going to manage you. And when I need to speak up, I'll have a team meeting. But you guys are going to police your own clubhouse and you're going to police yourselves until I need to step in. And Joe was one of the, like I said, one of the greatest at being able to read people and get the best out of them.
No, Joe Torre, he was amazing. Still is.
Oh yeah.
Who like who set the tone for leadership in that 90s team?
Well, you got to remember back then, David Cohn was there with the pitching staff.
Okay.
1996, I was the 10-year Yankee. I was the guy that had the most time with the Yankees. And so even though I wasn't an everyday starter, I kind of was the cheerleader, like the guy that kind of kept things loose in the dugout. When we were struggling with the bats, I'd grab everybody's bats, put them in the middle of the locker room and just start beating them going, okay, I'm going to wake these things up. Let's go. But I think one of the things that was so great, the way, like I said, Buck Showalter and Gene Michael started it, and then Joe Torre and Bob Watson continued it, was that we were in charge of ourselves, and we were going to only go as far as long as we stayed together.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what made those teams so special in the 90s.
Yeah, the unity was just man, it was on point. You guys, you can just see it. I mean, wow.
Yeah, it was back then it was, the game was important to move a runner over, to get a runner in, to sacrifice yourself for an out, to get somebody, over to third base. The game was being played back then.
Yeah, it sucks that now, Jim, it's all about home runs and analytics and things of that nature, right? Which I hate. I'm sorry, I have to say it, Jim.
Yeah, no, listen, it's starting to get back. It's starting to get back to more. Okay, sabermetrics is a great tool, but it's not the end all be all. And the best thing that could have ever happened to us is the 2025 World Series, the second game going into 18 innings, because that threw off. It was game 2, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. That threw off every one of those guys on that computer go, I don't know what to do after the ninth inning or the day. I don't know what to do here if we don't put a runner on second base. I don't know what to do here. You know,
Just place him there.
how do I run a bullpen? And and then what even makes harder is what do I do the day after?
That's right.
Okay. And you can't, there's no sabermetric for that. So guess what? From game 2 on, they had to go with their gut. They had to go with, and that's where Dave Roberts and those guys really being former players had such an advantage over people that have never played the game before that some of these organizations have running, because these guys knew what to do because they've been in there before. They've been in those moments. And I think that was a huge advantage, for Dave Roberts and the Dodgers, that even though they lost their sabermetrics feel, they still had a feel for the game, and they managed that way. And it was so good to see that, because as a former player, someone that's kind of what they call old school, it was good to see that the game's got to get back to more of that.
Absolutely. I agree. I'm just tired of, the ball go this way and it moves that way. I'm just tired of it. I'm tired of it.
Third time through the lineup.
That's it. Just go back to the 90s. That's it. Is there something that fans don't, or better yet, what's something that fans don't realize about the mental grind of being either a part-time player or platoon guy on a championship team?
Well, listen, they don't understand that. The one thing about baseball where it's so different from any other sport is that in baseball, we have 162 games in 186 days. There's no downtime. There's no, okay, let's go back and look at tape, what I did last week, so I can get ready for this week.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
Yeah.
It's a mental grind to a point of every 3 days as a catcher, I had to learn an entire roster of players. I had to learn an entire roster of hitters that were coming to play against me. And I had to determine what is, through scouting reports and through everything, what is the strength of my pitcher against that lineup.
Yeah.
But then, because I was a hitter first, a catcher second.
In addition,
then I had to go and learn about their starting pitching staff that I was going to face as a hitter. And I had to do this every 3 days for an entire season. Oh, and by the way, I got to get on a plane and fly to a different city every 3 days and spend a night in a different hotel every 3 days before I get to go home to a place where I get to spend 7 days, but it's really not my home. It's where I played during the season. I don't think people understood really just how much
it's tough.
We were on the road.
Yeah.
I know my own family, my mother, my father, my brothers, my sisters, they didn't understand, because as soon as the season was over with, they'd be like, hey, Jimmy, let's go on this vacation. Let's go on this vacation. I'm going to go. Guys, I live in Florida. All right. You're going to come visit me because I'm going nowhere because I've been traveling for 9 months. But so I know other people don't understand just the amount of travel. And if you talk to any former player, they go, oh, do you miss the game? Well, yeah, of course we miss the camaraderie. We miss getting our name announced and 50,000 people screaming your name or booing you like you would get some places.
Yeah.
But we miss all that. But what we don't miss, and I can guarantee you most of them say, we don't miss the travel.
I had a Mike Lieberthal, right? And by the way, Jim, to me, I think that a catcher, being a catcher is probably by far the toughest position in baseball, right? Yeah. And Mike said this. Mike said, I asked him, I said, do you miss the sport? You miss the game? And he said, heck no. And I said, yeah. And I asked him, why so? How? Like, why? Like, I mean, again, you're playing in front of 50, 60,000 people, right? Yeah. Your name being called. You might hit a homer here, or you might have an off day, whatever the case may be. Why don't you miss the game? And he said, my knees are banged up.
Yeah. Here's what I'll tell you. This is, I get asked this question every single day. All right. Because during the season, I'm in New York for every Yankee home game.
Yeah.
So I work up in the suites. I give stadium tours for a company, called Grandstand Sports. I do a bunch of stuff. I'm still in New York. I'm still around the field every day. And when I'm up in the suites, the first thing people say is, "Don't you ever get tired of this?"
Oh, geez.
And I always say to them two things. The first thing I always say is, listen, if you would have told me at 26 years old, when I signed my first New York Yankee contract, that at age 62, they're going to invite me back to walk around in suites, sign autographs, and tell you stories and pay me, where do I sign that piece of paper? Where do I sign that lifetime annuity that the New York Yankees are giving me? Okay. That's the first thing I say.
Yeah.
And the second thing I say is, I really don't miss it because guess what? I accomplished every single thing that I ever wanted to as a kid growing up, wanting to make the big leagues, wanting to have an opportunity to play professional baseball. I went above and beyond that because I got a chance to have 3 World Series championships.
Yeah.
And I got to have a moment in New York Yankee history that every Yankee fan will never forget, because it's so far the last dynasty of the Yankees, but also maybe the greatest dynasty of the Yankees during that run. And I was a big part of that. I don't really think that I could go back and accomplish anything more, so I don't miss it.
Yeah.
So those are my 2 answers.
How does that feel though, Jim, right? Stepping out, looking up, noticing 50, 60,000 people. How was that first game like, Jim? Were you nervous?
Yeah. Listen, it was
better yet, Jim. I'm sorry. How was that? How did you when you got that call, when he called you from the minors? How was that?
Yeah, I think we had just got done playing in Toledo.
Mm-hmm.
There was 5,000 people in the stands.
Ooh.
And then Alan Mills and I got called up to the Yankees to go play in Baltimore. And I think there was 20,000 maybe in Baltimore. This was the old Memorial Stadium.
Yeah.
Camden Yards. And I think there was maybe 20,000 there.
That's still a lot though, Jim.
But then my first trip to Yankee Stadium was 3 days later. We come home from Baltimore. And we're playing the Boston Red Sox at home at Yankee Stadium. And the first night, Roger Clemens is pitching for the Boston Red Sox.
Oof.
There's 50,000 people in the stands.
Hmm.
It's the first time that I really looked out. I wasn't in the lineup because he was a right-hander. All right. And I didn't start the game, but I'm looking out going, holy crap. This is it. Unreal. And then, of course, I had been to a couple Yankee games when I was in the minor leagues, and all I remember is saying to Dave Island, who was one of my teammates, when Bob Shepard announces my name, I'll know I've made it. And it's the old Bob Shepard, now batting, number 13, Jim Leyritz, number 13. That's when you know you've made it. I got that opportunity that first night to get introduced to go face Roger Clemens in a pinch hit. And I got a base hit off Roger Clemens my first time at bat in Yankee Stadium. And I had those 50,000 people screaming and yelling. There is nothing that compares to that, besides hitting a walk-off home run in the playoffs.
I probably would have fainted, Jim.
Yeah, it was.
I think I would have fainted.
I would be lying to you if I
try to put myself in your shoes right now, and I think I would have dropped.
Yep, I would be lying to you if I say I wasn't a little bit nervous.
You bounced between teams, right? Later in your career. How did that change your approach to leadership? and fitting into a new clubhouse.
Well, that's the bigger part. That was the bigger part because I had carved myself with the Yankees as, like I mentioned, part-time kind of a leader, but not really because I didn't play every day, but a leader off the field type of thing. And I wouldn't even call it a leader, just a cheerleader. Basically.
No, come on, Jim. See, honestly, and I'm going to say this publicly, right? To me, you were better than Joe. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. Well, listen, that didn't. That
I'm sorry,
part,
Joe.
yeah. But to be honest with you, some of those things wouldn't happen if other people would have thought that way. So I'm kind of lucky. But no, for me, I think the bigger thing was, and I'm sorry, what was the question you asked on this?
So I said you bounced between teams, right? Later on in your career.
I think the hardest thing for me when I got traded, first of all, the first trade, I asked for that trade to the
really.
Angels. Yeah, after we won in '96, and Joe Torre had come over in '90. I almost didn't come back in '96. I didn't want to come back if Buck Showalter was going to be the manager in '96.
I didn't know that, Jim.
Because him and I didn't get along, and we had some issues. And then when Torre got named manager, my agent and Steinbrenner got on the phone, and my agent was very clear with Joe Torre that if Jimmy's coming back, what do you see? How are you projecting his role next year for you? So I can prepare him to be ready. Yeah. And Joe Torre said, I'm going to get him 450 at-bats because he can catch Pettit still, and he can play other positions, and I'll make sure I get him 400, 500 at-bats this year. Well, go back and look. I had 279 at-bats in 1996. I wasn't happy about that. And after I hit the home run, I felt like it gave me the opportunity to say to Mr. Steinbrenner, if I'm coming back next year and I can't play every day, if my agents find me a place to go play every day, will you allow me to leave? And George said to my agents, okay, go for it if you can do that. And sure enough, January of 1997, I'm on the field in Tampa working out at the Yankee complex. I get called off the field because we didn't have cell phones back then. I get called off the field. I'm on the clubhouse phone with my agent. He said, hey, you are now a California Angel. We just signed a 3-year deal, which is my first 3-year deal in the big leagues, for $5.7 million. And you're going to be the starting catcher in Anaheim. And you have George to thank for that.
Wow.
So I packed up my stuff at the Tampa complex, the minor league complex, packed up my stuff. I walked into George's office and I said, listen, Mr. Steinbrenner, I want to thank you.
Yeah.
And he said, yes, you know what? You deserve a shot, but you'll always be a Yankee. And I said, well, thank you for that. And he goes, why is your stuff packed up? And I said, well, I'm not a Yankee anymore. I can't work out here. And he said, son, go unpack your things. You will always be a Yankee. You will be welcome to work out here anytime you want for what you've done for this organization. Wow. And good luck. Good luck wherever you go. That was George Steinbrenner.
Holy cow.
That was George.
Do you miss him, Jim?
Oh, God, yes. Especially after everything I've been through.
Yeah.
When I had the
Which
accident,
sounds like he had your back a whole lot.
When I first had the accident in 2007, he called me. He was still somewhat, knew what was going on, but then he was starting to lose his mind a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, after 3 years of waiting for trial and all that stuff, he was passed away before everything came to, as far as everything worked out, unfortunately. But yeah, I miss him because I know that had he been there when everything I went through, he would have had me back on the field right away and welcomed me back into the organization completely. Yeah,
it seems like, well, from what you're saying, right? And us as fans knew what was going on too as well. He did a lot for your career.
Yeah.
Can you take us to that night? If you can.
To the accident?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, Jim.
Oh, not at all.
Okay.
Listen, I wrote a book called Catching Heat. It came out in 2011. It tells the entire story of never being drafted, making it to the big leagues, and then of course having the accident, and then of course overcoming that and everything that's happened, during that 3 years of waiting for trial. But anyway, yeah. So 2007, December 27th, night of my birthday, I spent all day with my kids at the beach in Fort Lauderdale. My ex-wife gave me a call around 6 o'clock and said, hey, I know it's your birthday. Are you planning on doing anything? Because I wouldn't mind just watching the boys for you, if you want to go do something. And I really hadn't thought about it because I really didn't rely on her a lot back then.
Yeah.
And I made a couple phone calls, and one of my good friends, she said, yeah, we're going to go out. We're going out to dinner with my parents, but we can meet you for a drink afterwards, but we're not staying out very late because we're going to the Bahamas for New Year's. And, this was December 27th. And I said, no problem. I don't plan on being out late. My ex-wife is taking care of the kids, and I got to pick them up at 7 o'clock in the morning and take them to school. So I'm not going to be out late myself. And long story short, we went out. I did have a couple of drinks, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, driving home, unfortunately, there was someone else who was drinking and driving who ran a red light. I caught her back end. Unfortunately, if she had been seatbelted, we would not have gone through anything that I went through. It would have been obvious that she caused the accident, that she ran the red light, that she was intoxicated, that yes, I should have never been drinking and driving myself. And that opened me up for everything that happened. But at the same time, the seatbelt is the reason why this woman lost her life. And had she been wearing the seatbelt, that probably would not have happened. And it was just an unfortunate tragedy on every aspect that you could think of.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for me, it was a situation where, because of the drinking and driving, if I didn't have a drink that night, Mike, it wouldn't have been a question who was at fault.
Yeah.
It would not have even been a question. But because I had a drink and I was driving, I was held to some culpability as far as, it could have been my fault.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, the way things turned out, once the depositions were taken, once all the evidence came out, I thought the case would be dropped because there was so much evidence. There was so much, the depositions all pointed to that I did not cause the accident. But the evidence also showed that I had a couple drinks and I was driving a car. So there was, that was my mistake. But I didn't think it was going to go very long. I didn't think it would be drawn out for 3 years like it was. But I also didn't know that the state attorney of Florida was running to become a judge. And she had a big name.
Yeah.
And she knew that those 3 years, this woman threw me in jail 2 or 3 different times. She convinced my wife to trump up a domestic violence charge against me just so she could throw me back in jail and get my name back out in the headlights. There are so many things that happened during that 3 years that were abuse of power by a state attorney.
Yeah.
To a point where even the judge in my case called me in afterwards and said, Mr. Leyritz, we're sorry that this should have never went to trial, that we didn't realize that the state attorney was using this to try to further her career. And he apologized. Long story short, it took 3 years to go to trial. There were delays because of her daughter's bat mitzvah and family vacations that she had planned with her family. It was just, here I am chomping at the bit. I wanted to go to trial 2 weeks after my accident because I knew I didn't cause this thing.
Yeah.
But I had to wait for my day in court. And to be honest with you, thank God. There's a reason. We always say that, Rick Warren, who's the pastor of my church, he always says a delay is not a denial. And it's the most powerful words I ever heard, because my trial kept getting delayed. But every time the trial got delayed, something happened in my life that gave me faith that it was happening for a reason. Not that I was being punished, but this was happening for a reason, for the betterment of an outcome that was going to eventually come my way. And little did we know, but our faith is what gets us through that. And my pastor at my church, Troy Gramling in Fort Lauderdale, and the book, The Purpose Driven Life, and Rick Warren, and a prayer that Rick Warren said over me 10 or 11 months before my trial, when I was doubting some of the things that were happening. I met Rick Warren in California with my girlfriend at the time, who was now my wife. But my girlfriend, we went to church in Saddleback, and I got a chance to meet Rick Warren and tell him what I was going through and my worries and everything else. And a prayer that he said over me, he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, let the jury be just. Let them see through the smoke and mirrors of what the state is trying to do. But most of all, give Jimmy the strength to see it to the end. Had no idea what that was meaning in January of 2010. But I can't tell you the power of Rick Warren saying a prayer to me, number one. But the prayer, all of a sudden, 3 months before my trial, I'm told by my attorney that he thinks I should take a plea because all of this evidence that we had that was our slam dunk case was being thrown out about the other driver. The jury was never going to hear all of these things that this other driver was doing with text messaging, no seatbelt. All that was not going to be heard at my trial. That my attorney said, I think I can get you 10 years probation, 5 years, 10 years probation, 5 years no license, a felony on your record, but you won't do 1 day in jail. And Jimmy, you're facing 15 years without all this evidence. I think I can get that for you. And I said to him, after speaking to my now wife, girlfriend at the time, Michelle, I said, what do you think? And she said, Rick Warren said, see it to the end. You need to see it to the end. And I called my attorney up and said, nope, let's go. We're going to trial. And sure enough, by the grace of God, there were so many things that happened during that trial, during that 12, 17 days, that only God's hand was placed on me to get through those moments. And those things that happened were only because of the faith that I had, that justice and the truth went out in the end. As we always say, the truth will set you free.
That's right.
One of those famous Bible verses, right?
Amen.
And the truth that was, And so that's exactly what happened. And when the trial was over with, the judge called me in and said, where do you want to go? And I said, Your Honor, can I go to California? Because I got a first-time offense, DUI, no 1 year probation, $500 fine. That was all I got. And all I had to do was be on a year of probation. And he told me, you live in the neighborhood the state attorney lives in. You need to get out. She's going to try to get you during your probation.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, can I go to California? He said, yes. Call in once a month and check in, and you're good to go. And literally, dude, I hightailed it to California, and I've been out here since 2011. Michelle and I got married in 2016. We have 5 kids together. We've had a Brady Bunch for many, many years, and we are now almost empty nesters. And we have a life that has been blessed beyond. We both wake up in the morning before we even speak to each other. We read the Bible. We do our separate 15 minutes alone. And before we even start our days, because we know that if we put God's armor on first, that whatever happens to us the rest of the day, we are able to handle anything. And you know what? We're just blessed that and that's one of the reasons our relationship is as special as it is, because we put God first in everything that we do.
Well, it takes 3, right?
Yep.
You, your wife, and Jesus.
Yep.
To keep it together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
She was a blessing. The night I met her in New York, she didn't know what I was going through. I told her everything I was going through, and we didn't know each other. It was our first night meeting. And she said to me, but you seem like such a normal guy. How do you handle all this pressure? And I And I said, well, listen, I read this book called The Purpose Driven Life by this pastor named Rick Warren. And she looked at me and she said, that's the pastor of my church. I go to his church in California. This is the first night I meet this girl. There was a reason that we met. And to her credit, she read more about me. She read more about the case. She came down to Florida to visit me. She read all the depositions. After she read the deposition, she read all the evidence. She came out of the room 3 hours later after reading all this. And she looked at me and she said, you are innocent. You're not lying to me. And I'm going to stay with you till the end. And God bless her, she did.
So, God bless Michelle. Am I right, Michelle?
Michelle, yeah.
God bless Michelle. Oh, yeah. Man.
Yeah.
Man, Jesus is so good, Jim, right? Yeah. See, in my case, I met my wife 12 years ago.
Okay.
And yes, of course, I was still, I cheated. Man, I did a whole lot. Things that I regret now, to be honest. But if it wasn't for, again, you guys and my wife, I have to include my wife.
Of course,
man, I'd have been long gone, Jim. Me living in New York and her living over here in Summit, New Jersey.
Right.
Two totally different lives, right? She was raised a whole different way than myself, right? Because I didn't have a father. He was there, but he was non-existent, right? I couldn't go up to him and say, "Hey, Dad, how you doing?" No, it was just he was just there. That's it. So, for the most part, Mom was always working, and I said, "Hey, there's only one route, right, to go, and that is, I was looking for a father figure, so right. I took on the streets, and that was my life for so many years, including fornication, right? I was never into drugs, I thank God, but nor drinking, but that was my thing. My thing was gang banging and women. And it took a very, very long time. Again, as I said earlier, I gave my life to the Lord 3 years ago. But even then, like that first year was so tough because I'm over here thinking, hey, I'm gonna do it this way. I, forgetting about him, right? Trying to do it my way, trying to do it this way. And once I realized that I couldn't do it on my own and that I needed him, then that's when things became easier. Now, granted, of course, I'm not perfect. No one is.
None of us are.
Yeah. Right. But once I did that, I said, okay, I'll let you in. No more I. That's it. Right. I need your help here. And not only that, Jim, but was it 20? I would say about 3 years ago, a little before I gave my life to him, right? I wake up one morning, and every morning I'll look at myself in the mirror, and it's one day I noticed that. So let's just say I don't know how much you weigh, but let's say you weighed about 170, 150. Let's just say you weigh 150, right? The following day, Jim, you're down to 135. You're like, hold on, what is going on? Right. The day after, you're 120 now. So in a span of a week, you lost about 40 pounds. That is not normal, right? And that happened to me. So I said, okay, something is going on. I said, all right, either, me doing these things with women. I only thought two things, either cancer or AIDS, right? Yeah. But I said, you know what? I mean, we have two beautiful children. Well, at the time, one. They ran all those tests that they had to run, right? And she was fine. I mean, there's nothing going on, right? So what could be the issue? Well, long story short, Jim, I tried every single doctor. I went to go see every single doctor, and no one could pinpoint and say, hey, Mike, this is what you have. Until I go to a gastro. And the gastro's like, hey, Mike, look, we need to do an endo and a colonoscopy ASAP, ASAP. I said, okay, no problem. They put me to sleep literally that same day. They put me to sleep. I would say about a half hour later, I woke up. And he's like, hey, Mike, we got the results. You have Crohn's disease.
Oh.
I said, what? I didn't know what he was talking about.
Yep.
He said, yeah, it's moderate. Well, I mean, it can be mild, moderate, or severe. I really don't know what you're talking about, right? But then he said, go home and do your homework, do some research. And in fact, that's what I did. They gave me was it prednisone, if I'm not mistaken?
Yep.
Steroids, right? I took steroids for about 6 months. But this one day, Jim, right? I'm in the shower and I'm like, man, I just started crying. I mean, I couldn't help it. And I said, hey, man, what is going on? Like, am I going through these things because I was such a bad person? So I started asking questions. And eventually it led me to, if you're real, please reveal yourself to me. And that is exactly what he did, Jay.
That's awesome. Yeah.
That same night, I mean, not only in my dream, but physically, he physically presented himself to me. That's why no one on this earth, on this pathetic world, can say to me that Jesus is not real.
Right.
I mean, I saw him physically. I saw him with my 2 eyes. Yeah. And by far the greatest
no, listen, we have to be broken before we can be healed. And the beauty of it is once you get to the point, Mike, the one big thing and I tell people all the time, The Purpose Driven Life, the book, I suggest it to anybody that's never read it before, because the first 4 words in that book, it's not about you.
That's right.
And if you can learn that, and you can learn that and implement that into your life, you'll never be lost. You'll never be lost.
Man, I'm sorry, Jim.
That's all right. No, listen, the power is the power, brother. It's good that you can recognize that, and you're able to, you're on the other side of it now.
Yeah.
So that's the good thing. And then the only thing that, we always tell people, like, they're like, oh, well, would you change your life or anything that you've ever done? I said, you know what? The only thing I would have ever changed is that woman did not pass away. Everything else I would never change, because it's made me who I am today. And could I have been a better teammate, a better father, a better husband, Oh yeah, I got 3 wives. I'm not my 3rd wife. I could have been a much better husband. All right. It wasn't just all the other person's fault. I'm not blaming the other person. But at the end of the day, when we find our faith, we can handle anything. And I think that's what given me more strength today than I've ever had in my entire life. And it was because of a tragedy that brought all that out. I was already starting. The way my pastor described it, Jimmy, God was knocking at your door.
Yeah.
Everything I told him I was going through, he's like, yeah, see, God had a hand in that. But God got tired of waiting for you. And he just decided to kick your door down that night.
Oh, yeah.
And he said that door was forever opened. And you became part of him. And that's what's changed my entire life going forward.
And I'm glad you let him in, Jim.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm glad you did. Man, a lot of people, that's another thing too, Jim, right? A lot of people tend to make fun of Jesus, mock Christianity. But
well, and I think
little do they know, Jim. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I agree with you. It it still happens. It's coming, it's coming back. It's gotten much better. Where, every time you see now an athlete win something, and most of the time they're giving God credit first, which was unheard of back in the day. But working at a church, working at things that I do out here in California, it is so great to hear people unafraid to say, you know what, I'm a Christian, I'm a believer. I believe in God. I don't. It's not a matter whether you're Christian, you're Catholic, you're Jewish. It's a matter of, do we understand that there's a higher power that we answer to because we're not strong enough ourselves?
That's right.
And whether you think it's scientific, whether you think it's God driven, whatever you might think it is, it's a higher power. And if you know that you have to rely on something else, it changes your whole perspective. And you make it when you realizing that you are not the reason everything happens to yourself in your life. Some of your choices are. Some of the choices that you make can cause that. But on a whole, you're here for a purpose.
I have two more questions for you, Jim.
Yeah, go ahead.
What would you want your legacy to be?
Geez, it's so funny you asked that. I just spoke to a bunch of kids at the church about this a couple weeks ago. I had a baseball legacy that I am so proud of. Never being drafted, making it to the big leagues, hitting some big home run. That's a baseball legacy that can never be taken away from me and can never be changed. But that was the first 35 years of my life.
Preach, Jim.
Yeah. I have a lot more. I'm 62 now. I still got quite a bit left to go. One of probably the most honorable things that I hear today are kids that come up to me and say, "Hey, you used to usher at Saddleback Church, didn't you?"
Wow.
Yes, I did. They're like, "Yeah, you used to greet us every morning. You were the nicest guy. We didn't even know you were a ball player. We didn't even know you. We just and to me, that's the biggest compliment.
Yeah.
That somebody can pay me, that they remember me as a man of God.
That says a lot, Jim.
Dude, that's a legacy.
Yeah.
That I don't think anybody wouldn't be proud of. And for people to know that the second part of my life has been all about God first, has been all about bringing other people to God and just really preaching the word. I look at a guy like Darryl Strawberry and I admire Darryl for what he's done. But the thing I always say about it, people don't talk about those things.
And they won't. And they won't.
Darryl, I can't tell you one article that's ever been written about Jim Leyritz and his faith. Jim Leyritz and what he was an usher at the church, and Jim Leyritz. There's none of that written. But here's what I will tell you. I show up at one bar in New York City somewhere. Hey, Jim Leyritz was seen at a bar in New York City.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. That's the difference.
They rather speak about or talk about your addictions, right? If there's any.
It's the negative press.
Right.
Negative,
and it sucks that it's like that.
Yeah. It's the,
because you guys deserve so much credit, way more credit than that, right?
Yeah.
Way more.
Listen, it's something that, Rick Warren actually said it to me, was like, "Jimmy, I know you want everybody to like you. It just doesn't happen. Not everybody likes me. And I've got one of the biggest churches in the world. You can't please everybody, but what you can do is you can show grace to everybody." And I have learned over the years, my biggest adversaries, there's still a couple in the Yankee organization, unfortunately. But my biggest adversaries, the people that don't like me at all, but don't know who Jim Leyritz is or who I am, sometimes speak ill. And it gets back to me, and I just say, you know what? God bless those people. That's their opinion. They know my persona. They don't know my character. And at the end of the day, I don't want to be judged by my persona.
And I'm sure some people would love to get a reaction from you, Jim.
Exactly. I
We're
want to
not
be judged.
we're not allowing that.
No, no. You know, I remember the very first time in 2009, it was the opening day in Yankee Stadium, that I was not invited to be part of the ceremony because I was going through trial.